You're now tuned into the hottest podcast in the world, the Stay Woke Podcast, right here on TheSonicBreakdown.com.
Man, it's time to wake up. Get this cake up. Only thing I care about
Of course, you know the Stay Woke Podcast is presented by TheSonicBreakdown.com. Go over there and check out our reviews. Our articles are up now at TheSonicBreakdown.com. And today's episode is actually sponsored by Top Harvest Club. So go check them out on Instagram at Top Harvest Club. Let's get right into it. Today's episode is another Rapture Discussion. It's part 4. And this is part 4, and it covers Eazy. And as we stated before, The Rapture is a documentary on Netflix that Nas produced. And each episode covers a different artist, more of a young and up-and-coming artist that many might not have known, and a lot of people do know as well. And this particular artist is Bay Area's own, straight from Oakland, Eazy. And for another a guest for this episode, as we've had for all of them so far, is Damian, Mr. Trance Man from the Vibrationz Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Nice to be here again.
Again, we're going to stick to the formula that we have been, and that is, how familiar are you with Eazy before the documentary?
Before the documentary, Eazy, I didn't really know too much about. The one song that did seem to be playing, at least on mainstream, was the, I Mean It song. So once I heard that, I figured out who it was. And then I also heard another song, but it wasn't by him. It was by Hoodie Allen, Fakin'. And when I first heard it, I thought it was Eazy at first because they sort of have a similar
tone.
Yeah, tone of voice. But then I obviously realized that it wasn't the same person. Other than that, I don't really know too much about him except that he was local, born and raised out of Oakland. And just the Meanest song, really. After that, I did really no further research on him.
I would say I'm really familiar with Eazy. I've heard about him it's been a minute. I'd say when his first album came out, I knew about it just because of my friends that I have. Because I wasn't out here at the time. I was in Atlanta at the time when his first album came out. And they let me know. I've been following him. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Eazy fan, but I think he's talented. I always thought he was talented. For me, I do think he represents the Bay very accurately, but for me in particular, there wasn't anything that I guess superseded him above, a J. Cole, a Joey Badass, even a Logic to me, of course a Kendrick. So there was nothing that made me that really stands out. I listen to his albums, but I don't go to them often. If I'm shuffling through my playlist and it hits a Eazy song, I'll be like, oh, I haven't listened to this album in a minute. I'll check it out and I'll listen to it again. But it's nothing that I go, oh, I have to go back to the Eazy
Right, you
album.
won't actively go and look for it.
Exactly.
I got you.
What I did think, or again, going back to the things that I say about all of the Rapture discussion so far, is I find a running theme. And the theme that I found in this one to me was therapy and balance. And what I mean by that is the therapy of music and how it has an effect on him and the people surrounding him, and the balance that you have to not let that therapy get overwhelming in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And so just, is there any particular theme or idea that you took from the overall theme of this particular episode?
I really thought of, when you said therapy, it reminded me of the Logic one, because both of them said it's like they're therapeutic. It seems to be for Eazy probably a little bit more, because I noticed Logic's a little bit more of an out there, more of expressive, versus Eazy. He's more the laid back, humble, more like a Dave East type of presence. But the overall theme I do pick up on is definitely therapeutic. What was the other thing you said? And
balance, just having the balance of it, and
the balance of the therapy with
just the balance of fame and music, because what the therapy brings, this is the way I saw it, is the therapy is the music, as he stated. And what does that music bring? It brought him fame, fortune, which are, can be positives. But as he was also stating, that it also takes something away from you. It took away his privacy. It took away his personal space in some regards, and the lack of energy and wanting to give everything you have. But at what point are you sacrificing what you have for yourself? That's the balance that I'm talking about of that therapy, because it's giving you something of the release of the emotions that he has, but it's also taking, because
right, there's a trade-off.
There's a trade-off, and finding that balance so that one doesn't overcome the other. And that's what I felt that him and Logic spoke about it as well to a certain degree. And I think that's well, but I think balance is a running theme in life. Because Nas in essence talks about it as well. If you talk about the balance between wanting to give for your friends and give back to your community, but also having enough for yourself. But I think in this particular, the therapy of it was, I thought it stuck out more than in a different regard than it did with Logic. And I also feel like this one had a different energy. This episode had a different energy to it as a result of the Bay Area, and I think that was one of the reasons for that different energy that I didn't feel in the Nas and Dave East one, or the T.I. one, or the Logic one.
What do you mean by energy? Is it the fact that like where he's from, and I guess it's like, are you a little bit more biased because like where he's from here, or like?
No, not because I'm not from the Bay. I've lived in the Bay long enough that I claim it as my home, but I've moved around a lot. I've lived in the East Coast, South, Midwest, so I can't, like, to me, I see different vibes. Like in the South, there is it's a more relaxed vibe than it is in New York, which has a more frantic, a more high energy feel, or high energy feel, even though you have cats like Dave East where they're laid back. But it's a different like attention that you feel versus that you do. And I just felt in this video or in this episode, you get that laid back California but still confident vibe, and that's the energy I'm talking about. That's the energy that I didn't feel in the other ones. And it's not saying that any other ones were better or this one's better. It's just different. And that's just the vibe that I got. And I think that I believe that's a result of the Bay Area, of the location of which he was from and where you kind of get your essence from.
Oh, hell yeah. Over here, too. It's a lot of diversity here. A lot of different personalities, a lot of different skills, unique talents.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different vibe to them, too. I mean, there could be, like, for example, maybe the more hyphy movement guys like Mr. Fab or Keek the Sneak or Mac Dre. The hyphy movement guys, you notice they're like a different versus like G-Eazy, even though they're from the same demographic. Same area, I mean.
Yeah. I still feel it's still, I think what I'm talking about is more transcendent than subgenres, because that's what I kind of feel like the hyphy movement versus the kind of rocker more vibe that you kind of get from certain G-Eazy songs versus more vibes that you get from Too Short, because that's a lot different than you get from Keek the Sneak and stuff. But I still feel anyways, a continuous or cohesive Bay Area vibe that you don't get from
that. That's where my point was, that it was just the general feel, just the look of they come from the same place. That's all I was saying.
Okay. One of the other things that I noticed as well is just how humble he was, but still how confident he was as well in his abilities and in his crafts. But he's still hungry and humble and wants more. And the thing that made me notice how humble he was the fact that others were saying how humble he was. Not necessarily him saying it himself. The fact that E40 is saying that's one of the first things that he noticed. And E40 being a legend in the Bay Area, especially for musicians and artists and rappers, like for him to even notice the humbleness in G-Eazy, who is a rising star in the game, just it spoke to me, and it really resonated to just his humbleness.
Do you remember that part where E40 was being interviewed and E40 said that G-Eazy basically carved his own path? Mm-hmm. Like he's not even like a comparable to the other hip hop artists out there or who's in the game right now. He created his own lane.
I definitely agree with E40. Now, to be, I guess, somewhat cynical or cynical in this matter, is what I would say is a part of me says he had no other choice because of him being a white rapper. Especially if you look at other artists like who are dope, like Asher Roth, who's a really good MC, who's very lyrical, and you don't hear from him now.
I've honestly never heard of him at all. I'm more of the old school type. That's probably why I don't really hear a lot of his new guys.
Well, Asher Roth's not new. He was out, what I was saying, 2008, 9, 10 maybe-ish.
What I mean is like 90s. That's what I mean by old school for me.
But that... Well, because G-Eazy didn't really start, like he said, until 2010? And so, like, my point was that put it this way, if I was G-Eazy, or if I was an artist that was coming up in the game, and I was a white man trying to be in hip hop game and trying to be a lyricist, or true, like, you really love the craft, you love hip hop, you love the movement, and you're trying to figure out a way to make it in there, you can't be Eminem, because unless you're Eminem, you can't be Eminem. You have that's a different level of talent. Like, that's trying to be like Michael Jordan. That's trying to be Jay-Z. No, you're not gonna be them. You're not gonna be Nas. Like,
well, that's why you can never be a duplicate.
So
you gotta be original.
Not even that, but I'm not even talking about being that same person, but being a lyricist to that degree. You can try, but there's very few that's gonna occur to. So my point is, like, if you're trying to be in that lane, you're not gonna get accepted unless you are that. And if you're not that, your other option is you have to carve your own lane. That's exactly what Macklemore did. That was exactly what Mac Miller did. You have to carve your own lane where you create your own following, where people understand your vibe, your energy, that can relate and understand that it's authentic, where you're not being a copycat of somebody else. And that's where, so I say I give him credit for that, but at the same time, I feel like it's a have to. It's either that or you don't make it. So I'm not going to give him tons of credit for that, put it that way.
Okay, understandable.
But I don't take away from the fact that he's dedicated to his craft, and that I don't think he's that he's faking his way to get there, that he's just trying to ride the wave of hip hop. I really think he really is into this hip hop thing. He's really into rap. He's really focused on the words, and he really wants to make great work. And so therefore I can respect it. And I think his albums, like I said before, I think he makes good music. Nothing for me that I've heard is great, but it's good. And I enjoy it. I definitely do think the last album that he had, I definitely do believe that was his best work. I really felt that he was really lyrically and introspectively.
What was his best work? The most recent one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it was also his most commercial successful release. So what did you think about his confidence?
Confidence in terms of just how he approaches everything? Honestly, I didn't really pay attention to it. But now that you brought that up, I just like how he'll just shake anything off that seems to come his way, whether it be particularly negative. If it comes his way, he just shoves it off and just continues to grind. He just goes at it. He's a hustler to the T. He just keeps going and going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going. So I really admire that, because from somebody who, like myself, who never really had confidence growing up, now that I do, so I now know like what he's doing. He's trying to really build himself, build his brand. As a matter of fact, that kind of ties in with what I'm doing with my own podcast going on. So I really respect that he is about his shit, about his craft, to get to where he wants to be, the greatest, or whatever his destination is, and his end destination is going to be.
And that's the thing. That's something that I did pick up on as well. And it was similar to I related it similar to what I said in the Logic video, is about seeing the vision before it happens. Of him saying, like, I saw us getting here. Like, I saw us getting here, but there was a lot of times when there was doubt, and times when, but like you said, I just went through it and basically just kept on working, just kept on going harder. Talking about when he went to, and he had those meetings with all the executives in New York, and they all turned him down. Yeah,
I was gonna actually bring that up too. I was trying to look for it.
It's just like, the persistence and that's what I mean by confidence and not cockiness. Is he had the confidence to believe in his talent and his work ethic, that he was going to work harder than everybody else. And that's another thing that I gravitate to, and I tell it to people all the time, is like I say about the interview I heard about Puff Daddy, about how he only sleeps 4 hours of sleep, gets 4 hours of sleep, and I was like, and he's rich and he's only doing that. So what do we, who are not at his level, have an excuse of saying we're too tired? Like, no, get up and go do it. And that's kind of my motto. And the same thing that G-Eazy said was like, when I get tired, I know somebody else, if I go to sleep, somebody else is going to be staying up working, and they're going to get to where I want to get. And so I don't. I just keep on working. And I just thought that was very inspirational and motivating.
That is some real deep ambition to fight through, or at least fight through all the obstacles when you're tired. To have that mindset, because it's almost like obsessive, because you're trying to get to there, and then you're sitting there generating a thought like someone out there, potentially it's true, because they say there's always someone better lurking in the shadows, that you gotta reach deep within and pull that son of a bitch out. I did see that. I remember that scene too. He basically persevered. Another thing I did want to mention too was how do you think his relationships were with his crew and his personnel and people? I wanted to see your thoughts on that.
I mean, I thought it was fine. That is something I did notice as well, is they didn't, in comparison to the other videos or the other episodes, it wasn't as highlighted. It was more strictly focused on him. I'm just thinking about the scenes. There was a lot more solo scenes than there were in comparison to the other episodes. That's something that I did notice on. But other than that, I really didn't. He seemed real with his team. But he's, from my perspective, from outsider looking in, he seems kind of like an introvert outside of being on the stage. He just he's sociable. He talks to people, but with logic. He's literally joking, playing like, a lot of physical contact. That I didn't notice that as much with G-Eazy. And maybe I just missed it. What about you?
No, I agree with you. Now looking back on that, he does seem a little bit more of the quiet type of demeanor, the peaceful phlegmatic. Go with the flow, just chill, just mellow it out. He doesn't really let any emotion get to him, whether it be good or negative. So he's pretty mellowed out. So yeah, I definitely. Now that you bring that up, I do see that now.
That is an interesting point, though, and I feel like I can relate to it more now that I put it in that perspective. It just,
like you personally relate to this one?
Yeah. Not on just on the basis of wanting something so bad and wanting to give your all at something so bad that it is to the point of obsession, and that others might not get that obsession, and others might, that you can be kind of that lone wolf at times. But just as I felt with him, is he felt like he's at peace with it, though. And for me, I'm at peace kind of in that. Again, I'm not saying I'm on his level or anything of that nature, but just in that same vein of wanting to be great at something and wanting to do something so bad that that's all you can focus on, and being okay with that.
I see what you mean. That lone wolf comment that you just made, in a lot of ways I'm like that myself. Usually when it comes to gotta do what I gotta do, or just whatever it is, I'm usually like a lone wolf. I kind of like that metaphor because I feel like that. I'm an alpha personality, but I'm more like a lone wolf. I don't travel with the pack. I go with my own way. As the 3-6 Mafia song with Good Charlie, I'm doing it my own way.
I want to take it back to about the balance, and I thought some of the scenes that were interesting was the scenes with him meeting the fans, and just the length of people that he's getting introduced to, and the levels of personal space that people feel at liberty to take on you, which they wouldn't on a stranger. And
right.
That's what you are, is a stranger.
Right, because that's status.
Yeah, just because you listen to somebody's music, that doesn't mean you know them. That doesn't mean you have, the liberties to hug them as if they're your friend, or, but, it's just interesting how music makes you feel that so personal connection to somebody that you feel like you
almost like know them like through the song.
Yeah, without even thinking, because I don't think they're maliciously going up like, oh, he's a stranger, I'm going to hug him anyways, and he's going to feel awkward. No, it's like, I feel like I know him, so he must feel the same way. Like he must feel like he knows me too. So it's cool. I can hug him. He can hug me. I'm his fan. But take that out of and put that in any other context, and it would never cross your mind to go up to somebody and just do that.
Right.
I just find that dynamic so interesting, that's what music takes us to, and that's what, like he said, music is that universal language. It's like it transcends even rational thought, because rationally, if you thought about it, you would never, like I said, you would never go up to a stranger,
right? Logically,
and just
it wouldn't
hug
make sense.
them and kiss them and say, you'd be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't know this person. You're just like, oh, give me a
I'm
moment.
sure into that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it wouldn't be. I'll put it this way: it wouldn't be the norm. And so that was just an interesting idea. Is there anything that you picked up that was small, quirky scenes like that meant a little bit more than it might have initially came off?
Not really, but that one in particular that you brought up when he was autographing and taking photos with the fans, he looked like he was like, oh god, I gotta do this again. Oh, another one. Oh, another one. You know, he said it was okay for a while, but then he's like, fuck. Yeah. he even said it in the episode. He goes, fuck.
I'm tired.
Like yeah, like no personal space a lot, you know, and that was one of the trade-offs that comes with it, man.
Yeah, you get to travel the world, but you lose your personal space.
Yeah, and
that's
like
crazy.
what he
like
said,
you know that you like just think about that dynamic. Like you get to travel the world, so if you weren't in a position to do this, your world might be very small. Like you might only be able to travel in the States or the city you live in or the state you live in. But this music allows you to see the world, which gives you a different worldview than you would ever be able to obtain. But yet, your personal space is so restricted.
and I think as you climb up the status rank or the status ladder, it gets smaller and smaller because you're more well known, and now everyone's like, oh my god, I can't literally like to even take a piss without someone like, can I get a photograph?
But you have the financial means to go anywhere in the world you want to.
Right, exactly. I thought it was a great lesson that there is a trade-off for fame, and I like how he also mentioned that it's not like a flick of the switch. You can't turn it off.
Yeah, and you're right. He can't turn it off. He can't just go to the store and be like, nobody's gonna recognize me. No, you're past that point now. You're past that point, but at the end of the day, he's still grateful for it, though. He's still grateful for the experiences he has. And that's why that's why Balance, again, I keep on bringing it up because it felt like for every few scenes or sections that they had of the positives, they had those sections to show the lows. It was the highs and the lows. The lows of trying to make it and being shut down to the highs of him making it and going to Lollapalooza. The lows of the situation with his mother, which I definitely want to touch on. Actually,
that little scene where he showed her the song.
Yeah, let's go actually to that because that reminded me of the song by Jay-Z, "Smile," where he talks about his mother being a lesbian and hiding it her whole life, and then he had an interview later where he talked about he knew for a long time, but they never actually had the conversation to I think a month before he wrote the song.
Oh shit! Wow.
So. And him to like be happy to see, and that's why it's called Smile, like that she can actually finally smile, because that's the conversation that they had was, you know, her saying that she loved this woman, or I think, and he was like, she even held it back a little bit by saying, I think I love this woman, instead of just saying, you know, I love this woman or I am in love with her,
right? To kind of like soften the blow a bit.
Yeah, she instead of just going all in, she was like, you know, lined it up that idea, and then G-Eazy feeling that same kind of story in essence. But the difference is that I also found that interesting is in Jay-Z's dynamic is he knew a long time, but he never told his mom, and he never had like an issue with it. He just didn't talk about it. Like he's like, well, if she ain't gonna talk about it, I ain't gonna talk about it.
Right.
So we
know it's her business. I understand. Yeah.
So we just ain't gonna talk about it. But where in G-Eazy's situation, it was more hostile and more I won't say hostile, but more defensive and upsetting for him, because he was like that they had a rift in essence because of it.
That a what?
They had a rift, like a rift in their relationship. What was your idea and feelings about that particular?
In terms of him finding out, I didn't think much of it. What I did think a lot of was he's like, here, I want to show you a song. I want to show you something real quick. And he goes and shows her the song, and I'm assuming this is kind of how I'm thinking the scenario is playing out. He showed her the song, they're just chilling there, right? And all of a sudden they start getting emotional and they hugged. I mean, that's what he explained from the documentary. So just hearing that, I'm like envisioning, like if I was in his shoes and I'd be like, my mom and I found out that she was a lesbian. And it's like, my mom and I don't really have like a very strong mother and son relationship as well. So like I'm imagining myself in those shoes, and I imagine I'd probably be doing the same thing. I definitely think it's like a very humane thing of him to spill that out in front of everybody and let people know how he felt about that.
I would say, I mean, I do say it's courageous of him. I don't know if I would say it's humane though. But I think that song was I think every artist has a point where you get to the point of being comfortable enough in your own skin to tell the stories that you want to tell and tell it in the way you want to tell it. And sometimes it's not about maturity or anything like that. It's about getting to a place, and there's several ways to get to that place. And I think that was the place for Eazy, where that's going to elevate his art and allow him to take it to places that I don't think he would have been able to if he didn't break that barrier or release those feelings.
That could have been, imagine if he didn't. Would he be in the same area where he was before?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Let's put it this way. I mean, remember from the episode 1 with Logic, you mentioned that if he wasn't authentic, would he be where he's at? Would he be as big as he is now? And, you said no, and you said your reasons for that. So, question here is, what do you think of if Eazy didn't do that? Or do you think he'll...
I think he still would have obtained...
The level where he's at now?
I think he still would have attained the level that he was at that he's at now, but I think it would have took a lot longer to reach it. Just because I think for him, especially at this point, I think people do gravitate to his lyrics, but it's more of... And it's going to sound negative and it's not like I'm taking away from his art, but I think it's more about his energy that people gravitate to. Because, again, think about when we watched The Logic. They showed videos of the fans rapping every word to his songs. Like knowing, like in the crowd, just knowing it. Verbatim in different places. Not just in one city, not just where he's from. You know
right, all over. Anywhere
so,
that he probably toured.
They're resonating to the words too. I'm not saying that Eazy people don't resonate to it, but I don't think it's to that level yet. But I think by having that breakthrough that he did with that song will allow him to get there.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
If he didn't have that breakthrough, I don't think he would get to that level, but I think he would get to the level where he is now.
Okay, yeah, definitely makes sense. I agree with that because I think there needs to be some sort of an obstacle that you knock over or a block that you knock over, and then all of a sudden that propels you to a higher status quo with whatever it is that you're doing.
It's an experience you needed to allow you to grow.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel you on that.
The last thing that I do want to touch on before we get out of here is the power of the voice. I thought was important that his voice had the power to change his life surroundings, but he still also has that fear of writing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. Because he said that when he was on that helicopter ride over, was it Brazil or Colombia?
I think it was Brazil, because that's where the Lollapalooza was.
Yeah, it was I think you're right, it was Brazil. Over when he was riding over that, and he was saying, like, basically he was kind of reminiscing, similar to the Logic scene, but he was like, I never thought I would make it to this point. And he's like, all based off of what I was writing in my notebook in class. Like, I was just devoted to this craft, and I want to work harder and harder in it, and that's all I was focused on. But yet I'm still worried about, and he was like, is the fear, he knows the power that it has, and that's what he was trying to obtain. But now that he has that power, it's the fear of saying the wrong thing.
Right, he's got to be...
And, that's what I mean that by that balance again is, that's what keeps you in check. And that's what we need. Fear is important. Fear is a very important thing in life, but you have to keep it in check. You have to know how to use fear to your advantage. And I think he has the right approach to it, because his fear of saying the wrong things is making sure that he's paying attention to every word he's saying.
Yeah, I do see you.
And that's important for hip hop. That's important for lyricism.
I totally see your perspective. I think I agree, and adding on to that, you are a little bit more choosy with what you say, because sometimes that could bite you in the ass. Unfortunately, as we know from history, shows us that if you say the wrong thing, and especially if you have a significant following, you could have repercussions. So I'm not saying Eazy's on that level or he's about to go over the hill with conspiracies or anything like that, but it's just the fact that he does watch what he say, like you mentioned, and I do think there is like a boundary to where you can go, but don't cross too much because it could, again, bite you in the ass.
Having that balance. If you listen to the J. Cole review that we have up, you'll know this kind of ties into it. That's kind of what J. Cole was talking about, in essence of not saying to censor or to not say what you want to say when it comes to writing lyrics, but it's more about just having a thoughtful approach to it. Making sure that you're saying what you want to say and that you mean what you're saying.
So would you say like the intentions are good with how you want it delivered?
Not necessarily that the intentions are good, because that's somewhat censored. That's up to the delivery. But I think that even if your intentions are bad, the words you use to express those intentions should be thoughtful, and that they should, as accurately as you can, convey your point to the person you're trying to convey it to. The problem that I feel like we're having in hip hop especially is people just saying things just to say things. You should have there should be some substance behind what you're saying. Let it be up to the listener to decide those intents, if they're good or bad. That's up to the listener and to decipher what they think the intent is. But it's not more about, I mean, it is about what you say, but like I said, it's about the thoughtfulness you put behind it. If you're just putting out words just to put out words, then why should we listen to what you have to say? Mm-hmm. That's just my feelings. If you're not putting thought behind it, why should we listen to what you have to say? Because why waste my time on something that's thoughtless?
Right. Nothing but just babble.
Yeah.
And just words with no meaning behind it.
That's what I feel is what G-Eazy was referring to when he's talking about the fear of what to say, of saying the wrong thing. It's just making sure that he's saying that his words are thoughtful. That's what I think. That's what he was trying to approach, and I think other artists like J. Cole is talking about similar aspects on his KOD album, which you should check that review out, which is on the Stable Podcast. But what I'll say is we'll end it by saying, what about this documentary changed your perspective about G-Eazy?
I'm not trying to make it sound like it's nothing, but just another humble hip-hop artist out there that I just got shown to or exposed to. So now I definitely want to do more research on his music, his background a bit more, see if I'll resonate with him. And then if I really do, then I'll start, downloading his music or whatnot. That's it, really.
For me, I would say stood out for me is, like I said, is the balance that he's trying to acquire, as well as how in tuned he is with the therapeutic aspect of music's effect on him as well as others. I think that was interesting that I didn't know before. I did feel a growth in knowledge of who he is as a person. And I am interested to see what he does moving forward. And I do want to see how he continues to explore music and the genre of it, and continue to be in his own lane. Because I find him akin to Wiz Khalifa, how Wiz Khalifa created his own lane, and he has his own following, that he doesn't rely on anybody else or anything else. Like he can go to a venue and sell it out right now, just based off of him as that person. I think that's kind of the lane that G-Eazy is creating, but not in Wiz Khalifa's lane, in his own lane, in his own right, in his own vibe and energy. And I just want to see how that continues to grow, because it was interesting to see the growth and maturation process of Wiz Khalifa and how he attained this level. And I think I can see G-Eazy, like I said, going in the similar route, but again in a different vein. So I'm very interested to see that growth, as well as and musically.
Yeah, interesting to see what other project he's got coming in the works.
So what I'll say is you should go definitely check out Rapture. It's this was episode 4, and this is the Rapture Discussion part 4. So definitely go check that out on Netflix. We will have some more episodes. We have 5, 6, 7, and 8, as well as our wrap-up episode. So definitely check those out. And as you know, we always say, first I want to say thank you to Damian for coming in and doing another podcast with us, Mr. Trance Man. And go check out the Vibrationz Podcast now on iTunes, SoundCloud, as well as YouTube. And like I said before, just click on the link down below, and that will take you to it. So thank you again, man.
Sweet. Thanks, D-Ray, for having me. Spread the sugar, you guys. Go check us out again on all the platforms that D-Ray just mentioned. and learn some knowledge.
And as our motto, as I always say, live, listen to some great music, and for this particular one, watch some great shows, and love more. And we're out.